They threatened to sue me over my chickens because their winery guests didn't like hearing a rooster crow during a tasting. And about 18 months later, that same winery was the most talked about place in the county, not because of their wine, not because of their weddings, but because a flock of farm animals turned their luxury brand into the punchline of every conversation from here to the next county over. And the wildest part, every single thing I did was legal, practical, and already part of running a real farm. My name's Caleb Mercer, and my family's been on the same piece of land outside Waverly Creek, Oregon, longer than most folks around here can remember. My dad bought the place back in 1984 when I was 7 years old. 26 acres, old fencing, a red barn that leaned a little to the west whenever the wind picked up, and soil rich enough to grow just about anything if you treated it right. It wasn't fancy. Never was. We raised produce for the farmer's market, kept a handful of dairy goats, and over the years we built up a flock of heritage chickens that pretty much roamed wherever they pleased inside the pasture line. That land raised me. It fed my parents. And after Dad passed and Mom moved into town, it became mine. Country life out there had always worked because nobody pretended it was anything else. If your neighbor had a tractor running at sunrise, that was normal. If cattle got loud before rain rolled in, nobody complained. You waved, you helped mend a fence if it came down, maybe shared sweet corn in summer and left each other alone. Then Harbor Ridge sellers moved in next door. Now don't get me wrong. At first I honestly thought it might be a good thing. The old Peterson property had sat empty for years after Earl Peterson sold his cattle and retired. Then one spring this black SUV convoy rolled in like a movie set. Contractors everywhere. Surveyors. Landscaping crews. Concrete trucks. A 6-month blur of construction. And then came Adrian and Vanessa Bell. Tech money from Seattle. Early 40s. Sharp clothes. Perfect smiles. They built what looked like somebody's idea of authentic wine country straight out of a lifestyle magazine. Reclaimed timber beams, string lights hanging over stone patios, fire pits, cedar tasting deck overlooking the vines they'd planted in perfect rows. Everything polished. Beautiful, honestly. Too beautiful. Like it had been built to look rustic without ever wanting to feel rustic. I remember the first weekend they opened. Cars lined the road. Guests in pressed linen shirts. Servers carrying charcuterie boards. Vanessa walking groups through the vineyard talking about handcrafted vintages and reconnecting with the purity of the land. And right in the middle of one of those speeches, my rooster Jasper let loose. Perfect timing. Big loud crow. The kind that rattles through open air and hits every corner of a field. Half the guests laughed. A couple people pulled out phones. Vanessa smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. I could see it from 60 yards away. That tight little freeze around the eyes. Like she wanted to scream, but couldn't. 2 days later Adrian walked over carrying a bottle of Pinot Noir. Friendly smile. Easy posture. Hey Caleb, he said. Thought we'd finally introduce ourselves properly. I invited him onto the porch. He complimented the tomatoes. Talked about how beautiful the area was. Poured wine into paper cups. Then he leaned back and said it. Listen, tiny favor. Weekends are our busiest. We've had a couple guests mention the rooster. Think there's any chance you could keep your birds in the barn during tastings? I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He smiled like this was a perfectly reasonable ask. I said, Adrian, they're free-range birds. Just a few hours. They don't work shifts. He chuckled, but his face tightened. Right. I just figured neighbors could help each other out. I nodded. Exactly. That was the end of that. Or I thought it was. A week later, I got a certified envelope from a law office in Portland. Noise complaint. Formal notice. Demanding immediate action regarding disruptive agricultural livestock interference negatively impacting commercial hospitality operations. I sat at my kitchen table reading that thing twice. Then a third time. Then I laughed so hard I nearly spilled coffee. My attorney, Martha Green, laughed harder. Martha had lived in Waverly Creek longer than I had and knew county agricultural code better than anybody. She read it, set it down, and said, Caleb, they built a tasting venue next to an operating farm protected under right-to-farm law. This is ridiculous. We sent one reply. Short and simple. Farm existed first. Fully compliant. No operational changes planned. A week after that they filed a zoning complaint. Dismissed. Then environmental nuisance. Dismissed. Then health department inspection. Inspector came out, checked everything, bought a dozen eggs before he left. Vanessa started venting online. posted about agricultural disruption harming local tourism. That went badly for her. Real bad. Locals piled in immediately. Farm was there first. Welcome to Oregon. Maybe vineyards belong near farms. Even tourists started teasing. I figured eventually they'd realize they overplayed it. I was wrong. Because 3 months later flyers started showing up around town. Petition hearing. Proposal to establish a special hospitality corridor. New sound restrictions. Agricultural noise limits during business hours. That was when my stomach dropped. Because annoying me was one thing. Trying to change county law so real farms had to adjust for wine tastings? That was different. And the worst part, they were collecting signatures from winery visitors, wedding guests, tourists passing through who'd never spent one cold winter morning fixing fence posts out there. Then the local station ran an interview. Adrian in a blazer. Standing between grapevines. Calm voice. Camera-ready smile. And he said, traditional farms are important, of course. But communities evolve. Agriculture needs to adapt when tourism creates stronger economic opportunity. I was standing in my kitchen watching that with dirt still on my boots from the north field. And I swear something cold settled in my chest. Because suddenly it wasn't about chickens anymore. It wasn't even about noise. It was about somebody moving next door, deciding their version of country life mattered more than the real thing. Then trying to rewrite the rules to make everybody else fit their picture. I shut the TV off. Walked outside. Jasper crowed from the fence post. Goats rattled the gate. The wind rolled through the field. And I stood there staring at Harbor Ridge glowing under those expensive patio lights, while another tasting group laughed on the deck. Then I smiled. Because Adrian Bell was right about one thing. Things were about to adapt. Just not in the direction he expected. Just not in the direction he expected. Now before anybody jumps in and says I went looking for revenge, that's not how it started. Truth is, I went looking for paperwork. Because if somebody with money and lawyers starts trying to rewrite county rules around your farm, emotion won't save you. Anger won't either. You need facts, permits, ordinances, and a very clear understanding of exactly what you're allowed to do. So the next morning I sat down with Martha Green at her office over black coffee and a stack of county agriculture documents. She read through everything twice, then looked at me over her glasses. Caleb, if you expand within agricultural use, document everything, and stay within livestock limits for your acreage, they can't touch you. I asked her straight, even if they hate every second of it. She smiled. Especially then. That was all I needed. Now for years I'd been thinking about expanding the flock anyway. Demand at the Saturday market had gone up. Heritage eggs sold fast. Restaurants in town had started asking for regular deliveries. I'd put it off because 40 birds already kept me busy. But if I was going to invest, might as well invest properly. 3 weeks later, I brought home 36 more birds. Rhode Island Reds. Barred Rocks. A handful of old Delaware hens. And 2 more roosters. Beautiful birds. Healthy. Loud. Very loud. Especially at sunrise. And especially around noon. Jasper immediately took issue with the newcomers and spent 2 straight days announcing his authority to every living creature within earshot. I'd be lying if I said that didn't amuse me. But I wasn't done. The brush near the south fence had been getting thick for years, and I genuinely planned on clearing it. Goats made sense. So I picked up 4 Nigerian dwarf goats from a breeder out near Millhaven. Tiny little things. Sweet faces. Huge personalities. And vocal. Lord have mercy. The first time one of them saw a leaf blow across the yard, she screamed like she was narrating a disaster. Then came the guinea fowl. Now if you've never heard guinea fowl before, imagine a smoke detector and a conspiracy theorist somehow becoming one animal. They notice everything. A squirrel. A truck. A butterfly. The wind changing direction. And they tell everybody about it. Immediately. Constantly. At full volume. Perfectly legal. Perfectly useful. Terrific tick control too. By the end of the month the farm sounded alive in every direction. Exactly like farms are supposed to. And Harbor Ridge noticed fast. First it was Vanessa trying to drown everything out. One Saturday, she had classical music playing through outdoor speakers across the patio. Mozart drifting over the vines. Then Jasper crowed. Then 3 hens kicked up. Then 1 goat yelled from the fence. Then all 6 guinea fowl lost their minds because a delivery van backed into the gravel lot. The result sounded like Mozart being chased by livestock. Guests were trying not to laugh. A server dropped a tray. and Vanessa looked like she might combust right there beside the tasting bar. A few days later, Adrian walked over again. No wine this time. No smile either. Caleb. Morning. This is becoming disruptive. I kept filling feed buckets. What part? The escalation. I looked up. Escalation. He pointed toward the pasture. You added animals. I expanded agricultural operations. You're doing this intentionally. I shrugged. I'm running a farm. His jaw tightened. Our guests can't hear the sommelier. I gave him a long look. Mine can hear the birds just fine. He stared, then said low and sharp, You're making a point. I nodded. Looks like we both are. He turned and walked off. That was the last neighborly conversation we ever had. After that, things got weird fast. Harbor Ridge had built their whole reputation online. Instagram reels, sunset vineyard photos, luxury weddings, weekend tasting packages. People wanted the polished countryside fantasy. And the internet. Well, the internet noticed everything. First came a review. 5 stars for scenery. 2 stars for atmosphere. Beautiful location, but roosters crowed through the tasting and goats kept bleating near the vines. Hard to hear staff. Then another. Wine was nice, but unexpected farm animal noise made ceremony difficult. Then another. Felt more like visiting a barn than a premium winery. I started hearing about it at town. The cashier at Dawson's Hardware grinned when I bought fencing staples. Caleb saw a review saying somebody's wedding vows got interrupted by a rooster. I smiled. Bird timing's been excellent lately. Then came social media. Vanessa posted carefully framed vineyard shots. And every comment section somehow ended up talking about animals. Cute goat in the background. Is that a chicken behind the bride? Honestly feels authentic. One video blew everything open. A wedding guest posted a clip during cocktail hour. Bride and groom under the arbor. Soft acoustic guitar. Beautiful evening. And right as the officiant says, if anyone objects, one of the guinea fowl let out the most ridiculous shriek I've ever heard in my life. Sounded like an alarm siren with feathers. The entire crowd lost it. Even the bride laughed. The video spread all over the county. Then statewide. Then somebody on TikTok captioned it. Real Oregon wine country experience. By Monday, Harbor Ridge was trending for all the wrong reasons. And once the joke caught fire, there was no controlling it. Memes. Comments. People tagging friends. Dinner and a livestock concert. Wine tasting plus emotional support chickens. Farm to table, but the farm is judging you. My produce stand got busier too. Not because I advertised. People just started stopping by after visiting the winery. Kids loved the goats. Parents bought eggs. Tourists asked to take pictures. One Saturday, I sold out before noon. A woman from Portland bought produce and laughed. We actually came for Harbor Ridge. But honestly, your place feels more real. That one stuck with me. Because that was the whole thing right there. Real. I never built an image. Never branded myself. Never hung string lights or sold a fantasy. I just worked land my family had worked for 40 years. And somehow that offended people trying to package authenticity and sell it by reservation. The county hearing happened 2 months later. Packed room. Farmers. Locals. A few winery guests. Adrian and Vanessa dressed like they were walking into an investor meeting. Adrian gave a polished speech about balancing tourism and agriculture, economic development, visitor expectations, community modernization. Then old Frank Dillard stood up. Frank's 82, runs cattle north of town, wears suspenders, and says exactly what he thinks. He walked to the mic and said, My cows don't wear watches. My chickens don't either. If tourists need silence, maybe don't move next to farms. Whole room laughed. Then Martha stood, quoted county code, right to farm protections. Precedent. The hearing ended exactly how I hoped. Proposal denied. Not even close. Vanessa stormed out. Adrian stayed behind. He passed me near the exit. Stopped. Looked exhausted. And for 1 second I almost felt bad. Almost. Then he said quietly, You've damaged our business. And something about that rubbed me raw. I leaned in just enough, so only he could hear. No, Adrian, your business got damaged the second you decided real farms were the inconvenience. His expression changed. Not angry. Not even defensive. Just tired. Like maybe for the first time he understood exactly where he'd lost control. Summer rolled into fall. Harvest season got busy. The vineyard next door still hosted events. Still tried. But bookings clearly slowed. Parking lot half full. Less music. More empty weekends. Their online reviews stayed messy. And every time Jasper crowed from the fence while evening light hit the vines, I could feel this strange calm settle over the property. Not triumph exactly. Not revenge. Just balance. Like the land had corrected something on its own. Then one October afternoon, while I was repairing a gate near the south pasture, I saw Adrian crossing through the vines alone. No blazer. No polished shoes. Flannel shirt. Hands in pockets. Walking slow. And from the look on his face, I knew this conversation was going somewhere different. And from the look on his face, I knew this conversation was going somewhere different. He stopped at the fence and stood there a second like he wasn't quite sure how to begin. No confident smile. No polished sales pitch. No lawyer language. Just a tired man staring out across a field while Jasper scratched at the dirt nearby, and one of the goats chewed lazily on a patch of weeds. I set my hammer down. Adrian nodded once. Mind if I come through? I opened the gate. He stepped in slow. For a while neither of us said anything. Wind moved through the pasture. Leaves rattled in the cottonwoods. A guinea fowl hollered from somewhere behind the barn. Then Adrian exhaled and gave this short laugh like he couldn't believe what he was about to admit. We got this wrong. I stayed quiet. He looked out toward Harbor Ridge. The vines were turning gold with fall, and the patio lights were already flickering on. It still looked beautiful, but beautiful wasn't enough anymore. He rubbed the back of his neck. When Vanessa and I bought that property, we really thought we were building something special. We thought people wanted a luxury escape. Something peaceful. I said, people do want peace. He nodded. Yeah, but we thought we could control what that looked like. That one landed. Because for the first time since they moved in, he wasn't trying to convince me of anything. He was just telling the truth. He gave a tired smile. I used to joke that you were sabotaging us. I glanced at Jasper. Well, he definitely had opinions. That actually got Adrian laughing. Real laughing. First time I'd ever heard it. Then he looked serious again. Bookings are down almost 40%. Weddings moved elsewhere. We spent so much trying to protect the image we wanted. We forgot we were standing in the middle of an actual farming community. I crossed my arms. Adrian, I never wanted your place to fail. He looked at me. I know. And honestly, that surprised me. Because I expected blame. Instead he just nodded. We should have come over with pie and introduced ourselves. We should have learned how things worked before trying to fix them. Probably. We made enemies for no reason. I let that sit a second. Then said what I'd been carrying around for over a year. My dad bought this place before half this county had paved roads. Every fence line out here has history. Every animal on this land earns its keep. We're not background scenery. Adrian looked down. I know that now. Then I said the thing I'd thought 100 times, but never out loud. You wanted the countryside. Without the country. He smiled like he'd heard that line in his head already. Yeah. Doesn't work that way. No, it really doesn't. We stood there a while longer. No anger left. Just two men in a field watching sunset hit land we both cared about for different reasons. Then he finally said it. We're selling. I looked over. Selling Harbor Ridge? He nodded. Vanessa agreed last week. That honestly caught me off guard. He shrugged. At some point you stop fighting reality. Then he looked over at the pasture where two hens were pecking beside a goat. And weirdly enough, I think your farm taught us more than we expected. He held out a hand. I shook it. Firm. Simple. No ceremony. He walked back through the vines as evening settled in. And for the first time since they'd arrived, the whole property next door felt quiet. Not empty. Just settled. Like a chapter closing. 2 months later, Harbor Ridge sold to a family-run winery from Central Oregon. The Bennetts. Third-generation growers. Practical people. Good handshake. First day, they came by with coffee and homemade bread. Mr. Bennett looked over at Jasper and laughed. That rooster always this dramatic? Only when he feels strongly. Good. We like personality. Right then I knew we'd be fine. And they did something smart immediately. Instead of fighting the farm around them, they leaned into it. They changed signage, updated marketing, started advertising real wine country. No polished fantasy. No pretending. They even put up a cedar sign at the entrance that made me laugh out loud the first time I saw it. Welcome to Hollow Creek Winery. Real Oregon wine country. Roosters included. People loved it. Tourists took photos with the sign. Kids visited the fence to feed goats. Wine guests wandered over to buy eggs and produce. The Bennetts partnered with me for seasonal farm baskets. Their weddings booked solid. And somehow the animals everyone once complained about became part of the charm. Jasper ended up in more vacation photos than some of the guests. One spring, a couple from California bought wine, tomatoes, and 6 cartons of eggs, and said the whole experience felt more memorable because nothing felt staged. That stuck with me, because maybe that was always the real lesson. People can spot fake eventually. Maybe not day one, maybe not even year one, but eventually. And no amount of branding or money can replace what's genuine. Land has its own rhythm. Communities do too. You can join that rhythm, respect it, add something meaningful to it. Or you can try forcing everything around you to match the picture in your head. And usually, the land wins. Every now and then somebody still brings up Harbor Ridge at the feed store or farmer's market. They'll grin and ask, "Caleb, you really planned all that?" And I always tell them the truth. I expanded my farm. That's it. The goats were practical. The guinea fowl handled ticks. The chickens laid eggs. And if timing happened to work out perfectly during a tasting or two, well, sometimes country life has a sense of humor. Still, I'll leave this with you. If you bought property beside a working farm and wanted peace and quiet, would you expect the farm to change for you? Or would you accept that real country life comes with early mornings, loud animals, dirt roads, and everything else that makes it real? Let me know down in the comments, because around here folks still argue both sides. And honestly, I'm curious where you land. And if you enjoy stories about property disputes, small-town justice, and moments where people try to push too far and learn the hard way, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. Because out here in the country, the quietest looking places usually have the wildest stories.